everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to try this new machine called the Airless Bubble Removal Machine by the company called Resiners. Basically a vacuum chamber for removing bubbles in liquids. It's made to use with resin, but you can also use it with liquid silicone. The company reached out and sent this to me to try it out, so you guys get to watch me try it for the first time. They claim that this machine will remove 99% of the bubbles from the resin, so we shall see. Now please keep in mind all thoughts and opinions are my own and are not influenced by the company. So here's the machine. It's quite hefty, but the outer shell is made out of plastic. And the machine comes with adapter plug, a manual, and some 8-ounce mixing cups. So to start this machine, it's very simple. All you have to do is plug it in and push the on button. The vacuum did start as soon as I pushed the on button, so don't push it until you're ready to use it. So the first resin I want to try is with this one by Naked Fusion. And as you can see, the hardener did oxidize because I have not used this for a year. This is a very thick resin, and in my opinion, the bubble releasing quality is terrible unless the resin layer is super thin. Like I'm talking 1/8 inch thick. Anything thicker than that, the bubble management is a nightmare. So I have the resin mixed here and there are tons of bubbles. Since the liquid under vacuum is going to expand, make sure to use a container that is taller than the amount of resin or else you're going to have a messy spillover. Make sure the valve is closed here before turning it on. The machine has two timer modes. One is 5 minutes and the other is 9 minutes. I'm going to use a 5-minute mode first and see how it goes. So you see the number on the left here? It should reach to minus 95 kilopascal. Okay, so it's done. So to open it, first release the valve by opening the flap here. And you should hear the air releasing. And the lid should come right off. As you can see, there are still tons of bubbles in the resin. It looks worse than we started, so I'm going to vacuum it again for another 5 minutes. And after 10 minutes, still tons of bubbles. It's probably the resin because I did try vacuuming this in the past with my own vacuum chamber, and it didn't work too well. I did try popping the bubbles with a heat gun, but it didn't make a difference, so I just went ahead and poured it into a mold. Now the next resin I want to try is the J-Diction resin, and I have high hopes with this one because it already has a great bubble releasing quality. So I already mixed a batch and into the chamber. And this is after 5 minutes, and there are still tons of bubbles, so I think it's good to just start at the 9-minute mode. And this is what it looks like after 10 minutes of vacuuming. And there are some bubbles, but these are all on the surface, so I can use my lighter to pop them. Now I do want to use my vacuum chamber I already have and compare it with the Resiners Airless. Because this has a separate pump, it's quite heavy and cumbersome, but it's heavy duty. And it reaches to 30 inch of mercury in seconds, which is a stronger vacuum compared to the Airless because if you convert it to kilopascal, it would be a little over 100. The pump also uses oil, so it exhausts a little bit of smoke when it's vacuuming, so I always have to make sure I work in a well-ventilated room. So the way I use this is I turn on the vacuum, then I let it run for a minute, and turn off the machine, and release the valve. Releasing the valve pops the bubbles on the surface. I repeat this a couple times, so this whole process takes less than 5 minutes. result is identical to the Resiners Airless. Some surface bubbles left, but that can be popped with a lighter. So this one I just poured into the mold, and you can still see some surface bubbles, which I will pop as more rise to the surface. But you can already see with the first batch, the one that we used, the airless, all the bubbles are gone. Here I did pour the same resin without the vacuum treatment to use as a control to compare later. Now it's the next day and the resin is fully cured. The first one is the Naked Fusion, and wow, tons and tons of micro bubbles in here. When you look at it from the side, you can see only the top half is filled with bubbles. These bubbles were not able to release all the way to the surface. And no surprise at all, as this resin is not good at self-degassing. That is why the resin is recommended to use for coating or for very thin casting. Now let's look at the control. This is the J-Diction resin with no vacuuming. The casting did turn yellow though, and the reason is because I used an old silicone mold. It's a bizarre thing, but you'll see in a bit with the star mold, it didn't turn the resin yellow because it's a new mold. Anyway, you can see some micro bubbles in the resin. Not a whole lot. The resin did a good job degassing most of them. Now let's take a look at the one we vacuumed with the airless. And there are no bubbles in the casting. The white specks are just dust contamination. Next, the resin we vacuumed using my industrial chamber. Again, the white specks are just dust contamination. I'm so sorry, but there are no bubbles in here. So both of these look exactly the same. I also tried with some UV resin and vacuumed it for 9 minutes, and it looks like this. Again, a bunch of surface bubbles that I was able to pop with a lighter, but there are still some tiny bubbles in the resin, but after letting it sit for a few minutes, it was able to degas the rest. So overall, the machine works, but it doesn't remove 99% of the bubbles. There were still post-vacuum bubble management required, where I had to pop the surface bubbles myself. And this goes the same with the industrial vacuum chamber I have, so it's normal. The process of vacuuming in general will pop some bubbles, but it mostly pulls them up to the surface. I do want to add that using a vacuum chamber will take away the resin working time. Every 2-part resin or silicone has a working time, usually 25 to 45 minutes long. Since it took 10 minutes to vacuum out the bubbles with the airless machine, let's say 15 minutes total including the mixing. And if your resin has a 30-minute working time, after vacuuming you are left with only 15 minutes to work with it before it starts curing. The industrial vacuum chamber can vacuum out the bubbles faster, giving you more working time. But I think in general, if you are going to use a vacuum chamber, it might be the best to use resin with longer working time. Another limitation I found with this machine is the size of the chamber. You won't be able to vacuum out a large amount of resin due to size restriction. It's only tall enough to fit the 8-ounce mixing cup, which is about 4.25 inch tall. And since the liquid expands in the vacuum, you want to keep the liquid level half the height of a container it's in. Whereas with the industrial vacuum chamber, you can buy different sized chambers separately. Overall, I do like the compact size of the airless. It's lightweight and easy to store away compared to the one I have, which has a 20-pound pump attached. The cost of airless machine is $150, and the industrial vacuum chamber can range from $100 to $400 depending on the size of the chamber. Mine was around $150, but this was 8 years ago, before the recession. So far, the airless machine works, but I don't know how long it's going to last, so I guess I will keep you posted or update you in the pinned comment of this video. Whereas the industrial one, for sure it still works, and I had it for almost a decade. Now the big question is, do I recommend it? Well, it really depends. If you're making a casting that's less than ½ inch, vacuum chamber is not necessary. Especially nowadays, there are so many brands of resin with great bubble releasing quality. However, if you're making anything thicker than ½ inch and bubble-free casting is very important to you, vacuum chamber is recommended. Also, as demonstrated, not all resins can be vacuumed out. Thick coating resin is not ideal for vacuuming, whereas casting resins generally work great. Well, I guess that's all I have to say about this. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful. I do have links in the description box and a coupon code if you're interested. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!